Little test that you can give yourself. Now, this isn't a criterion. This isn't a criterion for judging if other people are skeptics. But if you want to judge yourself, I think most skeptics will agree this is a good way to judge people's skepticism, among many other ways. But this one is, well, let me just say what it is. If you know the difference between how to think and what to think, if you know that those two things are separate, if you learn how to think from person X, you're not going to end up thinking what they think. If if you learned a good way, if you learn the skeptical way. But in dogma, they're the same thing. How to think is a set of instructions, like driving instructions, on how to get to a particular destination. So how you think is the way you go to get to what you think. So when someone teaches you, for example, if someone sells you a book that says, with the title, How to Find God, they're giving you instructions, directions rather, of how to get there. And a problem with that is that such directions are dependent on where you're coming from. If you're trying to get to Chicago and you're in LA, you're going to take totally different roads and turns than if you're in New York. Right? But in the case of skepticism, how you think is really just your logical system. What you're going to end up thinking is going to depend on all the input, all the principles, your likes and dislikes, your situation, where you are, all of the conditions, including your own preferences of where you want to go. In other words, you'll be taught how to think and you'll be able to go anywhere. A better metaphor for what's going on with that in skepticism is if you're taught how to do carpentry, you're not made to build a particular kind of building. Even if you'd say while you were learning carpentry, you built 5 different kinds of buildings and all the different kinds of things that you put in them. You're not limited to those 5 buildings when you go want to build a building and use that skill of carpentry. And even if you've just learned American carpentry techniques and American architectures, then that's not going to stop you from going and learning Japanese architecture and applying it. And in fact, in the modern context, somebody really taught architecture or even carpentry would learn techniques that in fact are from all around the world. Teaching you how to build a building is not telling you what building to build, right? If you're limited in your knowledge, it's not because you learned certain carpentry techniques, it's because you didn't learn more. Right? There's more ways about how. There's always more things about how. So it'll impact what you build, but it's really not going to limit it. So I think this is a way you can tell the difference in yourself of if you're really a skeptic. I only say this because so many of you, which are mostly 99% dogmatists, many of you fancy yourself skeptics. And this is one way you could see if you're really a skeptic. Do you understand the distinction of how to think as separate from what to think? How you think versus is separate from what you think. Right? There's not just one path. In a dogma, how you think is instructions, one way to get to the place you want to go. And in skepticism, you're actually taught how to navigate.